What if there was another way to actually live, a way that you can actually start to be in charge of your own healing, a way to get out of this survival mode and into creative mode? Well, it's my job as your host to introduce you to some modalities that might actually make all the difference and to give you your power back. My name is Sarah, and I have the pleasure of meeting you every week to discuss new modalities and new topics that are really making a difference out there. So, buckle up and enjoy the show. Hello and welcome to the Healing Tree Hub. Today I have an incredible guest, Trish Palmer. A nice and easy one for me not to stuff up because I usually stuff these up every single time. So welcome, Trish. I am so excited to have you on my show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Honestly, I was so stoked when I got your text message. I'm like, oh, absolutely. I would love to be on your show.
This was a really interesting meeting. We were both working at the Bohemian Summer Festival in
Yes.
February. Feels like ages ago now.
I know.
And I only really went to one main workshop apart from the mediumship workshops, and it was yours. I was just drawn to you. And I remember watching you on that stage thinking, you have such incredible stage presence. And I really take note of that. And I was really drawn in. I sat down, I listened, I was like, I'm in. So well done. But I found your inner child workshop so fascinating. And it was a really different look at it. So I really loved it. And I just wanted to give you credits for that because
Oh,
I
thank
absolutely
you.
loved your workshop. So yeah, we met at this beautiful Bohemian festival, and I recommend it to anybody, by the way.
Oh,
That was an incredible.
absolutely. I'll be there next year.
Well,
Absolutely.
I've applied, so fingers crossed they give me the gig.
Oh, same. I've put in for it and I've put in to do extra stuff like past life and things like that as well. So fingers crossed we'll
Amazing. And
both get in.
I can't wait to delve into what you do as well, because even I'm not 100% sure of all the incredible things that you do. So I'm so excited to talk about this today. And I think that this is going to go in so many fun directions. But first of all, I want to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself and what you do, what your business is.
I'm Trish Palmer. I am the creator of Palin and Palmer Specialty Hypnosis Training. This wasn't a thing that was ever supposed to happen for me. I was a massage therapist and I had gone through a really rough time. So I ended up bankrupt, homeless, living under a bridge.
Oh my
And
goodness.
yeah, I was in a really bad place. And I got to a stage where there was no one else to call. There was no one else to call. And trigger warning for those who think of some very dark thoughts. I went to the darkest possible thought ever.
Yeah.
And I had taken every kind of pill, drug, whatever to fix the brain as such. And I was like, look, you know what? I'm gonna do it. And yeah, and then one particular night I was under the bridge and oh God, it was so cold. I remember how cold it was. And for those of you who have a pillow, I want you to imagine your pillow now and think about your pillow because I didn't even have a pillow. I was sleeping on the ground and all I wished for was a pillow, something that would take away my stresses for that one night. And it was so cold that I was shivering that I thought my back was going to break. Anyway, I was wet as well. And I must have fallen asleep at one stage because I was praying. I was like, just let me die. Just let me die. I can't do this anymore. I've had enough. And I must have fallen asleep at some stage. And then a bloody gigantic truck drove over the bridge and woke me up. And I was like, I remember going bolt upright. And then because the sun was on my face and it was so warm, and I thought, oh, I died during the night and gone to heaven. But then
Oh,
this truck woke me up and I sat up bolt right and I started screaming at the sun, what do you want from me? Like I was just screaming it in sheer desperation. And I was like, I've got nothing left to give. You cannot take anything else from me. How am I ever going to be able to help the world again? I'm a good citizen. I paid all my bills. I got ripped off. This is not my fault. What do you do? And I was just so wild that I was still living on this earth. And
yeah.
anyway, as I was sitting there, I thought, what does that smell? And I realized it was me. And I thought to myself, you know what? They've got free biscuits on Thursdays down at the library. I'm going to go down, get myself some bickies, and then have a shower at the amenity rooms on the way through and walk it out. So that's what I did. And anyway, I got to the library and they didn't have any bickies, so that topped it off even more for me. And I sat on the computer, and because they had free computer day, and I'm like, you know what? How can you nerf yourself without it hurting?
Oh,
And an ad popped up for hypnosis, and it was completely free for 2 days in Melbourne. Now, remember, I've got no car, no transport, no money. I wasn't eligible for the dole at the time because I had gone bankrupt, and because I didn't have a permanent address, they couldn't give me anything.
oh my goodness.
So
Yes.
it was, I walked the streets at night. I'm really grateful for all those drunks that throw the $2 coins in the streets
Oh,
because you could pick them up and get at least a couple of potato cakes or something to get you through them.
yeah,
And yeah, they had this hypnosis course, and I thought, you know what? Why not? I've done everything else that's bloody woo out there. Let's give this
yeah.
a crack. It's free. So I hitchhiked my way to Melbourne and it just changed my life. I sat in this huge group of people and they're all talking about your mindset and how you have to get rid of those little weeds out of your garden, otherwise they'll take over you. And then you get so sucked in that you'll go to a dark place and that you can learn to get back on your feet again. You've
Yeah.
just got to do it one step at a time. And yeah, and it just changed my world. And that's what I decided to do. That now that I was feeling liberated on some sense in my brain that I could achieve again, how else could I go? And one of the sayings was that wasn't so much learning this stuff and then going, when does it end? It was learning this stuff and then going, how far can I take it? And
Yeah.
not only for myself, but to spread it to others. And that's what I did. I hitchhiked my way back to Portland, and that's about a 6 or 7 hour drive. And hitchhiked my way back to Portland and went to a mate's place because I thought, you know what? I have helped you so many times. I'm going to bunk on your couch and you're going to listen to me. Like this guy, I'd even picked him up in his own vomit and cleaned him up. And I was like,
Yeah.
nah, you're a single guy. I'm going to sleep on your couch for a few days, sort myself out,
Yeah.
get my shit organized. I walked up this driveway, and unfortunately, in between time, I had come across my ex, and he had taken a baseball bat to my face in between getting back to Portland and going to this
Oh my
guy's
goodness.
place. And yeah, I was in a pretty rough way and went to my mate's place. And there was a guy in the driveway, and he's throwing all my mate's stuff. His old shop, because this is the back of an old shop, and he's throwing all this stuff into the driveway. And I went up to him and I said, oh, because I've got to understand that my left side of my face isn't working properly and I've got a black eye like you haven't seen before. And I went to my mate's place and I said to this guy, I said, what's going on? And he goes, you tell that mongrel he owes me money and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, I said, do apologize. I said, actually thought he was doing okay and was hoping I could stay a few days because I'm in a bit of a rough place. And this guy ended up being my savior, my guardian angel.
Whoa.
Okay. Complete random guy. Didn't know him from a bar of soap, never met him in my life. So he was the landlord of the property and he was working over in Japan at the time as a scuba diver. And he must have seen somebody that had just had enough. Like I'd done my hypnosis, I was ready to go, intervened with an ex on the way home, got into a bad spot, was still going, no, I can do this, I can do this, get rid of them, blah, blah, blah. And yeah, and his name is Ian. And Ian looked at me and he said, you want to stay here for a couple of weeks? And I said to him, look, I said, yes. I said, I told him my story. I said, look, I'm not in the dole yet. I've just gone bankrupt. I'm sorting myself out, I promise. He ended up being in contact with a guy who worked at Centrelink in Portland at the time and said, look, you need to get this chick's profile sorted out. And
Wow.
yeah, within a week, they had me in there. They were helping me out, all this sort of stuff. I stayed at that place for 5 years, got my massage up and running, got the hypnosis up and running. And then about 5 years later, I met my partner that I've got now. And I said to Ian, I said, look, I said, I want to move to Mount Gambier, which was across the border in South Australia. So it was an hour away. And I said, look, I want to move in with my partner. And he said, oh, goes, rather than do that, I've got a house over there you can move into. He said, just test the waters a bit. And then if you really
Oh,
like him,
Ian.
then move in with him. And I was like, sure. So I stayed in his place for another 12 months. And then, so Ian saved me, just a random gesture of kindness, of recognizing that somebody was in a bad place, but I must have had some kind of energy about me to say, hey, I'm still a good egg.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? But yeah,
absolutely.
I honestly think if I hadn't have taken that trip to that free 2-day hypnosis thing, I wouldn't be where I am. I'd still be sitting under the bridge crying, poor me, rather than actually looking at myself in the mirror and go, you know what? That happened yesterday.
Yeah.
When you're done with it, it's time to get up again and go, because that is all you have, is the ability to get up and go again. You know,
Wow.
and here we are today. And I must admit, if the universe says, Trish, we've got to do it again, I say, bring it, bitch.
Yep.
Let's fucking go.
Absolutely.
Let's get on with it. I don't have time to waste.
Oh, Trish, thank
Yeah.
you so much for being so vulnerable with us. I
Yeah.
really appreciate that. That is a huge story, and I have so much respect for you. My family and I, we do a little bit of work around the homeless, and it was all because of my son. All because of my son. He was 8 at the time, and I remember going to this all-you-can-eat buffet. It's actually awful. It's in Sunshine. And we end up eating all this food. Sorry if you're listening, owners of that store, but
The promotion of gluttony.
Sorry. Anyway, so we've got all this food, and it's just we've wasted every plate we've eaten, we've wasted because we didn't like it. And didn't think much of it. And my little son walks out, and someone is living rough on the concrete right next to this restaurant. And he's in real bad shape. And of course, we go to give some cash, and we didn't have anything on us. And my son burst out crying. And I said, are you okay? And he's, you've got to help him. You can't just leave him there. You can't just let him, look at all the food we wasted. Go get the food. Go get the food and give it to him. He's hungry. And then I started getting teary, and I didn't want to embarrass the gentleman. And I just thought, oh my God, for an 8-year-old to be able to see this and see through. And you mentioned before, there must have been some sort of energy in me that you could see through. And that is actually a thing. You can see it. So after that, we started connecting with, I call him Uncle Jack in Queensland. He won a humanitarian award for the work that he's doing with the homeless. Wow. And he taught us how to get onto the streets of Brisbane and assist in what they actually need. And he created these beautiful care packs for women. There'd be personal products or warming hands and gloves and nice warm things that they just don't have the necessities out there. So he taught us what they need, and we went and had a conversation out on the streets to find out what they need. And we started every year putting together these packages with donations of different people. And my children are coming out on the streets, and we're doing it very carefully, because obviously not everyone not everyone on the living rough is.
Well, some people aren't ready to be helped either. It doesn't hurt them enough.
Absolutely. But like you mentioned before, there's something in the ones that have found themselves in this position. So we go straight to them, and the children are there, and we actually have conversations with them and see how they're going and what's actually happening. And I cannot stress that the packages themselves are nice, but it's the conversation. Would you agree?
Yes. Yeah.
Or just the acknowledgement of being a human being.
Yeah. And it sounds like your son has the everyman Jungian archetype in him, and to have that is a true rarity.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah. Because the
I love it.
everyman just wants to create community, wants to help, and they're real game changers if they can get their feet solid and go, look, the world can be a cruel place, but just keep going.
Yeah, absolutely. So this conversation went into a different direction, but I just wanted to share that with you, because the minute you said there must have been something, yes, you can see it.
There is something about people, you can feel it, you know it. Yeah. And
absolutely.
You know, I think also that many of us, even when we discover our Jungians and our inner child and all that sort of stuff, there are some of us that need to just pause. We don't have to fill the space all the time. We can just be in the space and learn to be comfortable with that. And that's where you find people's energies. That's where you know people's true self. If you think that you really know someone, stop listening to their voice. because you will really know someone when you watch their actions.
Oh, so good. Absolutely. So you've come from hitting rock bottom, literally hitting rock bottom. You couldn't be any rock bottom than you were. And then you've started to create something for yourself. And look what you've created. Tell us about what this is that you've created.
So what happened was I decided to go and do the advanced hypnosis training, so to become a clinical hypnotherapist, because when you're at a state like I was, where depression is the darkest of places, anxiety, I was wearing like a heart rate monitor at one stage so that it would go off and tell me I'm about to have an anxiety attack. And with hypnosis, it promotes that you're the only one inside your head. So be nice.
Mm.
And as you're the only one that controls your thoughts, so be nice. And there's no perfect system to this stuff. We're not going to be nice to ourselves all the time. Even I have times where I'm like, oh God, Trish, you're such a dickhead sometimes. And we even have the darkness creeping in as clinical hypnotherapists, but we know when to weed the garden, when to recognize the signs, when to pause, when to go again. When are those times where you have to push because you've got to get that little bit of energy, having that balance that they talk about. And I decided to go and do the advanced training. And what had happened was another tragic story of Trish making bad choices. I had confided in my biological mother. She'd reached out to me and said, hey, would you like to meet up and blah, blah, blahs. And she decided that she was going to pay for the training for me. And I was stoked.
Wow.
Anyway, 2 weeks before the train's due, I rang up to confirm it and stuff like that. And they were like, oh, no, she got a refund because she wanted to start a new business and all this sort of stuff. And I was like, oh, okay, that's a bit rough. And I said, I still want to do it. How do we make this happen? And I don't ask of, I still want to do it. When's it happening? Blah, blah, blah. I always ask, how can we make this happen? Because that tells them I'm ready. I'm willing to go. And because it was quite expensive at the time, I paid it off over 2 years and then went to the court training. They wanted me to come do the training sooner, but I said, no. I said, my ethics say pay first, do later. So that's what I did. I then went off and did the advanced hypnosis training. Blew my mind, like just blew my mind of what we can achieve and how we can let go of those things from the past and how you can harbor forgiveness for yourself, not for them, for yourself, okay? Because you deserve it, not because they deserve it. And making sure that you are keeping yourself on that track and discovering all those things about yourself. But then after I'd done the advanced training, I'd gotten to a stage where I'm like, how deep does the rabbit hole go? And my partner's brother has Crohn's disease. So he's got the bag. He was in a really rough way with anxiety, and the health system isn't all that supportive when it comes to mental health. And he was just going to constantly to psychologists and things like that and reliving the same old story. And I said to him one day, I said, Luke, I said, do you mind if I work with you? Because I had developed IBS during my period of anxiety as well. And I had noticed that when I had done my hypnosis and my mindset stuff, that it had subsided. And I was like,
Wow.
wow, this is amazing. And I said to him, I said, look, I said, I can't fix the Crohn's, but surely we can help with the anxiety associated with it and that part with your enteric nervous system where it becomes activated because of your thoughts of worry and stuff. So that's what we did. We worked together for quite a few months. And then he sent me some friends. I talked to gastroenterologists. They sent me clients. And then suddenly we had our first training, which was the IBS hypnosis protocol. And I was like, okay, I'll just release this into the world, see if anyone who wants to learn it, blah, blah, blah. And and then our first course we had 15 people and it just went smashingly. And I was so honored. Then that led to us traveling around Australia, New Zealand. We were about to travel around the world when COVID hit, so that kind of put the dampener on that. But then after that, what had happened was I always like to listen to the feedback from my clients. And there are other little things that were popping up that I thought you can help with these little sideline things at the same time. So a lot of people would mention how, so I've got a training course on love languages, and they'd mention how they couldn't work out why they keep making these mistakes or they weren't connected to their partner. And I was like, okay, so I'll chuck that into the IBS hypnosis as well if it comes up for the person. And then I came across the inner child stuff with Carl Jung. And what had happened is because what it's like being self-employed, you've got to become the marketer and the social media person. And I came across the works of Carl Jung, and there was this marketing class, and they were talking about healing the inner child and the archetypes in marketing. And I was like, that all makes sense. But what about inside of you? Remove the sales and go with inside of you. So I started doing heaps of reading and heaps of studies into it. And that's when I started to discover my own archetype. And like I said, when I talked to you guys, it took me like 3 months to accept mine because I was like, no, that's bullshit. No. Oh, shit. Oh, wow. I just automatically did that. Oh, is that me? Oh, shit. So I had this semi-identity crisis about 4 years ago. And then what really ticked it for me was because with the archetypes, you're all 12 archetypes, so don't get that confused, okay? Everybody is every single archetype, but there are ones that are more dominant. So you have the adult one, which is the responsible one, usually the boring one, but that's what we do. We have to be responsible adults. And then we've got the child archetype, and that's that part of you that rekindles, that grows and plays and gives you that fire back in your belly as such. And then you've got your shadow archetype or the ego, whatever you want to call it. And the shadow archetype isn't there to hurt you. Your shadow archetype is there to step in as your shield. And then when you don't need to use the shield anymore, you're supposed to put it away. But unfortunately, there's many people that step into the shadow archetype and then become the shadow because it's easier to protect yourself than what it is to be true self.
Yeah.
Makes
Wow.
sense?
It absolutely does.
Yeah, and I'd found out these things about myself. And even my shadow self, as much as I didn't like Shadow Trish, or Liz as I used to call her, trying to get a bit of dissociation going on, because I was like, oh, I don't really like her, but I know why she's doing it. Your shadow is there to remind you that this is not comfortable, so you need to either step up your standards or move away from it. And most of us, because shadow is easy, we step into shadow too much. We become that rebel mentality or that victim mentality or something along those lines because it's just easier. Hey, I've been there myself. It's just bloody easy. But the point is that when you recognize the shadow archetype, you recognize that it's like a crutch. So when you break your leg, you'll have crutches for about 6 to 8 weeks. But you don't continue to use crutches if the leg is healed. You put the crutches away and you strengthen the leg and then keep moving on. Regardless of the little limp or whatever you might have, you just continue on. And that's the same with your shadow self. It's a shield to tell you, hey, I'm not comfortable. I'm not liking this. I'm just stepping in front of you whilst you process this. And then when you're ready to bring the shield down and be your true self again, I'll just step to the side. And that's why we have this mentality where we say, oh, I feel like I'm beside myself. Because literally you are. Your shadow hasn't stepped in yet because it's like, it's okay to challenge you, but it's not okay to hurt you. So you're not hurting enough. But I know this is uncomfortable and we're going to have to get comfortable with it to build our resources. So once I'd worked out that shadow self, that's when I could work out where Liz, as I called her, where she went into depression, where she went into anxiety, where she couldn't people, is what I would say. Is no, I can't people today. And once I recognized all that, I was like, okay, I think more people need to learn this. But the part that ticked it off for me was recognizing it in other people and then being able to help them in that recognition. My father was admitted to hospital on the 13th of December, the 12th of December 2020. He went in for exploratory surgery and it was COVID at that time. I lived in a different state. And he rang me at 7 a.m. in the morning and he said, oh, I'm scared. And I said, yeah. I said, we don't know what they're going to find, Dad. And I said to him, you can't die. You're a tough old bugger. I'll see you in a few hours. By 4 o'clock that afternoon, his wife had rang me and she said, you need to get here and say goodbye. And they were the last words that I ever said to my dad. And that's what I did. I flew illegally over the border. It was 8 hours drive. So I flew illegally over the border because there's no way them Nobody was stopping me
No,
from
God,
getting to
no.
that hospital. Anyway, I got to the hospital, and all I wanted, because he was such an critical condition, all I wanted was to just sit there and talk to him on my own. But you got the
Yeah.
nurse there and all the buttons and things like that. And anyway, I was sitting there and I'm like, universe, I want to be selfish. I said, I really want to talk to him on my own. Then the nurse turned around. She goes, look, I'm really sorry. I've got to run down his bloods and we've got no one to take them down. She goes, do you mind sitting here for 20 minutes? She goes, I'll be super, super quick. And if you need me, you got to push this button. I'm like, I'm on you.
Perfect.
I've got your back. And then as she left, in that moment, because my dad, unfortunately, was a chronic alcoholic and a narcissist. Okay. But in that moment, I thought, you know what? This is my opportunity. I can tell him anything I want. I can
Yeah.
tell him how much you hurt me, how he was one of the reasons why I was deaf, because he used to, back many years ago, you discipline children with a leather strap and
Yeah.
all that sort of stuff. And all those times when I was a kid, when he said he was going to pick me up and then he didn't. And I thought, I've got this opportunity for you to shut up and just listen to me. And as you've got guides and they give you messages. Anyway, in those moments of time, I was sitting there and all of a sudden in my head, it goes, number 8, Trish. And I went, holy shit. My dad's inner child is number 8. It's the jester. And all these memories came flooding back that I'd obviously vaulted at some stage of all those times when we had great times together.
Yeah.
And he was a jester. He was pretending to be the karate kid and going karate chop on things. And that's what he was. He was the jester. And I just remember all these wonderful feelings coming back and this huge amount of healing coming through. And not only that, but as I was going through this flood of memories, I turned to my dad and I'm like, hey, Dad, it's Trish. I said, funny part is we can't respond, so you're going to have to listen to me, aren't you? And as I was sitting there, I said to him, I said, I remember those good times. And I told him, I said, you always ask me about what I'm learning. And he's always telling me, why don't you just go get a real job? And I'm like, I have a real job. My responsible self is the teacher, so I'm always interested in learning. That's what my adult self is. And in that moment, I said to him, I said, you're always asking me what I'm learning. I said, so I'm learning about the Jungian archetypes at the moment. And I honestly believe that you're number 8, you're the jester. So when you've got that inner child, and I kept just rambling about it. And then I said to him, I said, Dad, I said, I love you. I said, but whatever you don't come back because this body's not going to serve you. I said, it is rotten. I said, it's not going to be pleasant if you do. I said, I love you, but you're free to go. I'm okay.
Yeah.
And that's when the nurse walked back in and she said, we need to go and have a uncomfortable discussion with the doctor. And that's when we decided to proceed with turning off the machines, etc.
Yeah.
But honestly, I cherished knowing that I knew enough about the archetypes to activate those memories and for my
Yeah.
guides to guide me on them.
And that last final moment to be able to
Yeah,
really rejoice
yeah.
in that.
Because
Yeah.
it's not like you get to practice this shit, okay? You don't get a practice run and then think,
No.
I don't like this, I don't want to do it anymore. It's literally just, you are here, now you've got to do your best.
Yeah.
And I was so privileged that my guides turned to me and said, now's not the time for you, Trish. It's not the time for you saying, look, you hurt me, blah, blah, blah. This is a time of love and forgiveness and
Yeah.
really reconciling 2 souls. So not just my soul, but his as well. And I think and then, like I said, that was the creme de la creme moment where I went,
Yeah.
more people need to know about this.
Absolutely.
And it's
It's a
not
game
about,
changer.
it's not about just finding it in a child and then loving them and all that
Yeah.
sort of stuff. It's so much more than that.
It's getting an awareness and an understanding of what's running in the background that you haven't been
Yeah,
aware of all this time.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
why I'm so
And
passionate about inner
embracing it.
child.
Yeah,
Mm.
embracing it as well, because like I said, it took me like about 3 months to accept my archetype, because I was running the script of a false archetype. Because
Oh,
my mum that raised me, she looked after disabled children because my cousin Sandy had cerebral palsy, so she was in a wheelchair. And mum was passionate about helping disabled children. So she'd organise holidays for them and stuff like that. And she was a single mum with us 2 kids, and Sandy half living with us, half not. And we were just raised with it. We were just like, oh, that kid's got no arm, it's normal. That kid's deaf,
yeah.
that's normal. That kid's blind, that's normal. That's how we were raised. But I
Yeah.
was running the script of my mother. So my mother's archetype as the adult self was to be the nurturer, the carer.
Yeah.
And that's the script I was running. And then, and I catch myself on it as well. But then someone would get sick and I'd look after them. And then after a couple of weeks, so you're getting better because we can go do some fun stuff again. And it's not malevolent or anything like that.
Yeah.
That's not a strong archetype in me. And I needed
Yeah.
to recognize it was one of my weaknesses.
Yeah.
So I can go, you know what? I'm getting outside the scope of myself here, what's running in the background. I need to pass this on so I don't go to burnout or self-hate or
Yeah.
depression, things like that. And that doesn't make me a bad person. That makes me an aware person that
Yeah.
understands, you know what? I can't be 100% good at 100% things.
We've got different people with different strengths, and
Yes,
we need the nurturers and we need the
we need
leaders and we
them.
need
Mm,
all of the
mm.
different archetypes. So
And
it's very,
recognizing
very,
your trigger archetype as well, because there's some that trigger me and I'm just like, oh, for fuck's sake,
yeah.
go away.
It's usually a bit of a reflection for me. I don't know if you could give any insight on that, but I'm starting to really understand in my older age that when someone is triggering me, it's some sort of mirror being placed in front of me that
That's
something I don't
all it
like about
is.
myself.
Yeah. And
Mm,
that's where your ego or your shadow archetype starts to put up the shield. The shield's not up because the
yeah,
shield only comes up when the response is aggressive, frustrated, confused, something where you think, oh, you're mean. They're not being
yeah,
mean, they're shielding. That's why we
yeah,
call it smoking mirrors. And that's why when we feel those triggers, they're like, oh, that's a reflection of you. Well, yeah,
yeah,
because it's triggering me. It's reminding me either I need to do something about this or move away from it because it's not what I want. And that's what I'm
absolutely.
saying when I say, look, I'm not the nurturer. I'm happy to help you through the flu or something like that. But you know what? I'm really not the best person if we're going to be here for 2, 3, 4, 5 years. Like without a solution, that is. I need the
Yeah,
solution parcel. I need active, like action
yeah.
on that. And understanding those triggers and those weaknesses within yourself, and also giving yourself permission not to be strong at them.
And Trish, I really wanted to discuss this with you because it's something that has been a real interesting insight in the
Mm-hmm.
last year or two doing inner child work. And my inner child work's much different to yours, but it's the same but different, really.
Mm-hmm.
But I find that sometimes these moments that have happened where all of a sudden everything's changed in this child's life and now they've got a new personality trait or they've got a new way of seeing the world, and having these aha moments as an adult and really truly shining light on it allows this awareness. And it's almost like just being aware of it, it's no longer controlling that person in the
Exactly.
background. It's no longer unknown. It is the light has been shone on, the
Mm-hmm.
cat's out of the bag. And it's almost like someone pulls a string from a ribbon and unties the knot
Mm-hmm.
just from the awareness itself. Can
Mm.
you give us some insight on your version of that and maybe some understanding around that?
I must admit, with me in particular, it was also like realizing those actions that I was doing, and that was confirming it. But the way
Yeah.
it really, like you talked about the string, okay? What happened with me is I was with my best friend at the time, and we were up in Queensland, stinking hot. It was gorgeous weather. And she said to me, let's go get an ice cream. Now, I'm not a huge fan of ice cream anyway, but she
Yep.
loves it, loves the ice cream. Anyway, we're standing there and we're looking at all the different ice creams. And she turns to me, and she's never usually really interested in what I'm doing, what I'm learning. And she said to me, she goes, oh, you've been doing this Jungian thing. And I said, Jungian, sweetheart, Jungian. She goes, yeah. And then as she said that, I think I'll get the licorice ice cream today. And I literally went, and I got that light bulb that I was like, wow, I've got all these different versions of ice cream I could choose. And all I've done is recognize that I don't like the licorice one. I'm not going to choose it. And it was all the power to me. The licorice doesn't affect me. It can be part of the range, but I don't have to choose it.
Yeah.
It's my trigger one. If you come to me and you're like, Trish, here, have some licorice, I'm there. So that's my trigger. I recognize you, Jungian.
Yeah.
That's a no, hard pass. Because
Yeah.
you've gone, you know what, I don't like this. This is my trigger. I recognize trigger. But trigger doesn't take over. Trigger doesn't make me feel bad or guilty or shameful. Trigger just goes, oh no, that's not for me. I don't order the licorice ice cream and then sit there complaining about it. You know?
And there's power in that. There's real power in that. I remember Abraham Hicks speaking about, don't be afraid of the things that are presented to you that you don't prefer. So when you're presented with something that you don't prefer, there's a real gift in it. Because all of a sudden you get to look at the exact opposite or the exact extreme duality, and you'll find what exactly you do prefer. And half the time, us adults, we don't know what we really want. We can't even start creating anything because we don't know what we want.
And because we're giving to it as a stoic society as well. So we're always told to grow up, stop being silly. That's not appropriate. You should do this in this environment. And this is unfortunately where adults, we get confused. So our shield then goes up to protect us. And then we go into anxiety, depression, confusion, passive aggression. And it's just because we're trying to protect ourselves from what society is telling us we must be doing. No, what you must be doing is be yourself without harming others. And here's to all the mates that we've got different opinions about, but we're still friends.
Yeah, it's really important.
It's absolutely
really
important. So it's about recognizing that perhaps you don't like the licorice ice cream, and don't order it and then complain about it. That's dumb. No, you can be smarter than this, have a softer approach, and you'll feel better about it. Don't do it the dumb way.
Now, Trish, I want to talk a little bit about what you're doing now as a business, so I can get a really good understanding of what you're doing for the community and what kind of work you're producing.
So with specialty hypnosis training, what we decided to do was, because originally it was just me, that was it. And I can't do it all. So what we did was we started a mentoring program, and then we asked our students to learn the Heal the Inner Child, love languages, anxiety, depression protocols. Yeah. And we give them a full library to learn. Plus, they're also under the supervision of me and my other colleagues as well. So then I moved into being a supervisor. And then we moved now into a non-profit organisation called Clinical Hypnosis Australia. And so that only launched in January. We're sorting it all out with the private health and the education system and stuff like that. And everybody that we've got on Clinical Hypnosis Australia are highly qualified professionals that I would trust to go to. Amazing. So we decided that rather than one person trying to help who they can, it was much more beneficial to train more people at the high quality standard and then get them to help people. One therapist can help 4 or 5 people a day. You expand that out over 500 or 600 people across Australia, then there's plenty of resources to invest in yourself and discover your inner child, envelop your strengths, recognize weaknesses, know when to use the crutch and the shield.
So important. So
absolutely, absolutely. So I'm now a supervisor, and like I said, we run the non-profit organisation, and there's heaps of people in there that can help you. And if you can't find someone, message me on the website, and I'll bloody help you.
I'll make sure that all your details are on the podcast description, so that if anyone wants to get in touch with Trish, which I really hope you do, because she's incredible.
Oh,
And I
thank
was
you,
guided
darling.
to, as I mentioned before, I was very much guided to you, guided to the workshop that you produced, but also guided. My guides literally came through and said, chase her down and get her on your show because it's important. She's got a message that's really important for your guests. And that's usually how I find my guest speakers. So
Yeah.
thank you for accepting the crazy lady chasing you down
Oh,
the
that's
street.
fine. That's fine. Because, yeah, I must admit, when you were like, give me your phone, I'm like, it's the sun. Can't say, when I say, what's my number again, everybody? And I've also given you the link for if anybody wants to learn it and become a practitioner, because even if you learn it from the practitioner point of view and then don't become a practitioner, you're going to discover so much about yourself. And I know everybody says that, oh, this is a life-changing modality, blah, blah, blah. Now, seriously, this is fucking
It
life-changing.
is.
This is next level shit. And I'm not doing this as an advertising spiel. I'm doing this as
No,
this shit works.
it
You know?
really does. I've done QHHT
Mm.
and delved into that. It's only just the tip of the iceberg for me, but I'm like, I need to do more of this. This is
Mm.
incredible work. It's transformative.
Yeah,
That's what I love about it.
absolutely.
It's because I
Absolutely.
don't know if it's my ADHD in the background or what it is, but I like to see fast results. It doesn't have to be easy,
Mm-hmm.
but it needs to be fast and effective.
Mm-hmm.
I need to see it happen. And this kind of work, it transforms lives.
And you discovered like what 3 different archetypes within that hour at Bohemia whilst we were on stage. And once you delve into it deeper, if you really want to delve in and you can discover who your sister's inner child is and then nurture that so you've got a better
Mm,
relationship, discover who your mum or your dad is, and then change into that mode. For example, my partner is the gesture when it comes to the child self.
yeah.
And one day he was at Woolworths, and I said to him, I said, "Oh, babe, you go grab some apples for me, please." Anyway, he got some apples and he was doing Count Dracula from Sesame Street. He was like, "1 apple, ha 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 ha," and then he put it in the bag. And then 2 apples, ha 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 ha, and then he put it in the bag. And the lady across from him was looking at him like he had some kind of psycho mental thing. And I was standing there thinking, you know what? He's in a good place. As much as I'm in a
Yeah.
hurry, he's in a good place.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't I allow him those 2 to 3 minutes of happiness to build up his self-esteem? Because the inner child fills your cup.
Yeah.
That's what it does. It fills your
Yeah.
cup. It lets you be silly, innocent, happy, vulnerable, whatever you need to be to recharge. So that's what he was doing. And I'm like, if he recharges for that snippet of time, then let him do that. And if you can discover this about your children and nurture that,
Oh,
how much
absolutely.
families have better relationships, kids have better like schooling. If teachers could learn when the child is
Mm,
in a child or adult, then you could give better teachings as well. You
100%.
know? So yeah, and that's why my partner and I, we've been together for 12 years. We've never even had an argument. And it's
That's
because I
incredible.
discovered this stuff and went, you know what? You are with your best friend for life.
Yeah.
Why would I ever want to argue with you? We'll have
Oh, I love that.
discussions, we'll have difference of
Yeah.
opinions, but let's just be nice, you know?
Yeah.
And he recognizes my inner child as well. My inner child, I am very lucky. So my inner child is the rebel. It's a bit
Oh, I
rebellious.
wouldn't have guessed it. No
Wouldn't
way.
have guessed it, would you? No. So if I'm messing things up and pulling something apart and putting it back together, that's the rebel mentality. And I'm not doing it for destructive purposes. I'm doing it because I'm like, oh, how does this work? I'm going to just pull that apart and learn from it. Oh, that broke. Oh, how do I fix that? And
Yeah.
that's what the rebel does if it's a healthy inner child. And if you can nurture that and just let me be, then that's what we'll go and do. That's how I recharge. And I'm not one of these people. I'm one of these people. I've got 600 million hobbies that I'm never going to do anything with. But that's what the rebel does. The rebel pulls things apart, puts them back together. You don't have to make it into a side business. You don't have to,
That's right. Taste test it. See if
yeah,
you like it.
yeah,
Absolutely.
see if
And
you
it's a
like.
really interesting point you bring up because so many of my clients, when they're doing the work and they're coming for energy healing or they're coming for whatever session they're coming for, and sometimes it's really obvious that that person has forgotten what it's like to actually be excited about something, to actually be excited.
And
And I asked them,
genuinely excited, where it sparks your
genuinely,
soul.
they could have a cruise booked for $30,000 and they're still not excited. Like, it's probably going to be. No. When was the last time you were excited? And I tend to give them a little task every day to create something in their day to just have some sort of excitement. It could be a bubble bath. It could be anything. And it's this inner child that just doesn't get to play anymore. They're so in charge of survival mode and kicking in and running the show as like a little 6-year-old version of themselves during the most important times of their life, that they're not getting a chance to be playful and have fun.
And understanding the Jungian archetype of their particular inner child means you can customize exactly what they're to do, because there's no point in you saying to me, hey Trish, I want you to go and pick some flowers. So the explorer as the inner child would want to do that.
Yes.
Where me, I'd be like, what the fuck am I going to do with the flowers? Are you kidding me? Like, I'd rather dig up the bush, work out how it grows, put the bush back in the ground, wash my hands. So it's about making that customization and then understanding that it's completely okay to do that. And that's how you recharge. There's some people that, have you seen those people that are fitness people? The explorers?
No.
They go running and hiking.
They're not in my reality.
No, that's my best friend. So she is the explorer as the inner child. She goes, let's go down here and have a look. And I'm like, let's not, and say we did. That's her inner child. That's how she recharges. She goes for walks and she explores and takes photos down the alley of artwork and stuff like that, where I'm like, if somebody gets you, it's your own fault. And she thinks I'm boring. She's not. She goes, that's boring, Trish. And I'm like, no, check out how this pen works. Yeah, see that? See that? And she'll be like, nah, that's boring. I'm like, yeah, but that's how my inner child has fun. It gets the spark in the belly. Your inner child gets a spark in the belly from wandering down the beach and searching for shells and stuff.
However you get it.
However you do it is how you do it, and embrace that. Sure, I'll go for a walk with my best friend because that's what she wants to do, because that's what adult responsible Trish wants to do and help her out to recharge. But I don't have to live that.
No.
It's just a small visit. Yeah, it's just a visit in time to help somebody else out, and then off I'll go.
Yeah.
You know? So,
follow your greatest joy, follow your greatest excitement. I truly believe that is that's what this journey is all about. It's not about getting to a certain destination and accomplishing something in particular. It's the journey there. And if we're missing those little hits of excitement and joy throughout that day, it's a big opportunity of living that we're missing. It's a big opportunity of being present in our life right now and actually enjoying the steps. So that's why this work's so important.
And don't get stuck on the whole, it's a money thing. Like it costs this much money. Oh, it costs this much money. Oh, that was a bad investment. Who cares? Guess what? You can make more money. You can't make more life.
Yeah.
Once that heart beats, it's gone. And if somebody is going to give you their heartbeats, that's the most expensive gift in the world. Appreciate it, because they've chosen to give you their life, something they can't make more of.
Yeah.
You know, go make more money. God, it's materialistic.
Yeah.
You know?
I often think about, I don't know who said it to me, but I'll never forget it. On your deathbed, when you've got your family around you, hopefully if you're lucky enough to have people around you when you're passing away, and what would you be thinking about? What would be the most important thing when you reflect back on your life? Would it have been, damn, I didn't work enough. I should have worked some more. I should have taken those shifts and earned some more money. Or would it be about the love that you had and the people you had around you, or your stamp on the world of your legacy? What is it? And I know for a fact it'll be all about love for me. All the connections I made, and did I make this world a better place? That's the most important thing. Yeah. So it all comes down to that, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Just be the truest and most honest, transparent version of yourself and enjoy it every step of the way.
Yes, I love that.
Laugh at yourself before anybody else does.
Yeah. Trish, I've had so much fun speaking to you. I could talk to you for hours.
Yeah, just
oh, absolutely. And there's so many more things I'd love to talk about. Maybe we need to arrange another podcast, because I know that you've got more in your toolkit to share. So maybe we have to organize that. But thank you so much for
Thanks
being
for
here
having
on my
me.
show.
Thank you
My
so much
pleasure.
for having me.
I can't wait to work with you again at Bohemian.
I'm going to get a cabin. I'm going to go to the night thing this year. I'm going to have a whole stall there doing tea leaf readings and things like that
Oh,
as well.
good.
We'll be able to talk more and hang out and all that sort of stuff. But just remember, it's a time to be silly and have fun. Okay.
It is. It is. It's to have some more fun, have some more excitement. And
Yes.
anyone listening to this podcast today, find something to be excited about. Anything.
Yes.
Let that little inner child play. Let
Yep.
her come or him come out.
Yeah, and they'll tell you what they like to do. So just go with it. Okay. Go with it, whether it's music, craft, yelling taxi from the backyard. It doesn't matter. You just do your thing. If you want to go do a yodeling class, you go do that. Okay.
Yeah. Whatever.
Be
As long
true
as it
to
doesn't hurt
you.
anyone, go for it.
Exactly. Exactly.
Thank you so much, Trish. And I am definitely going to be asking you back on. I want to talk about tea leaves next time and more about hypnosis. I'm so excited. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thanks for having me.